First of all, thank you for attending. I know when I was your age and at noon on Friday, I wouldn't have been in the election. I would have been at the closest cake party, but that was a different time and a different era. Great that you took your time out today. I hope you got bribed well for being here. I was worried about nobody showing up because I really don't pack the house most of the time. But anyway, we're going to talk today about job opportunities in the logistics workforce. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about my organization. We're kind of a unique niche in the logistics arena. Hopefully we have time. I'm going to go over some helpful hints on interviewing and after you get those kind of things. But a little bit about me first. I'm going to give you guys a little background, who I am, where I came from, what my experiences have been. First job that I can remember, official job that I had, was picking strawberries when I was in 6th grade. We did that during the summer after school was out, and did it for several summers afterwards. We picked for a peck of strawberries, which if you don't know what a peck is, that's 8 quarts. You got 8 cents for each peck. And I had enough when we got home at the end of the day to buy a candy bar from the candy bar machine when we got back. So a lot of hard work, a lot of labor for a little in return. Shortly thereafter, first experience in logistics. When I was 16, I got to help the UPS driver during the holiday season. We were delivering holiday packages for ongoing of about 3 weeks. I do it after school for the break in between. And I grew up in Northeast Ohio. It was in the middle of winter. And I will tell you for certain that every step we took out of the truck, it was uphill and 3 feet of snow. But I did have shoes, it wasn't barefoot, okay? So that was my first exposure to logistics. From there, I did several various jobs. Being up in Northeastern Ohio, it was a very industrial area. Most of it was supporting the car assembly, van assembly up in Lordstown, Ohio. So we had presses, big sheet metal presses, worked in a press shop there, worked in a pottery during the summer, about 80 degrees outside and about 120 inside for $1.10 an hour. And they sold the cups and saucers and dishes again the line for about 50 cents a dollar. Again, low-paying job, very high labor. Various other jobs, worked in the steel mill, worked in Lordstown. I was actually spot welding vans on the side of the assembly line. 3 different spot welders, not being trained. I think I made a few mistakes along the way, so anybody that bought a car back in the early 80s, late 70s, they might have gotten a little lemon. I'm not sure. But all these experiences I'm sharing with you for a reason. Worked in a foundry. If anybody saw a toilet, commode, bathtub, sink, elders, worked there. Shoveling black sand from underneath the shaker decks, and worked at an A&P meat packing plant, picking orders in a freezer, hauling boxes off the bacon line, and various other jobs. And then we were the cleanup crew after that was done, so we usually put in about a 14-hour day during our breaks and during the summer. The next real exposure I had to logistics was again when I was in college. I went to Kent State University, similar size to UNT. I worked on the reload in the evening. We did the unloading of the cars or the trucks after they came back at the end of the day, and we had to put them through a sort out. Back then we had to read every zip code. We had to have every zip code memorized, so we knew which conveyor belt to sort it down. After we got through with that, and this is primarily the first job you got to go into the trailer, and you got to build walls inside these trailers, 53-foot trailers. And you were allowed to build a wall about 3 foot high, about a foot away from the end of the nose of the trailer. And then behind that, you were allowed to put smaller boxes for filling. And subsequently, after you got that filled, then you built the wall up higher, put some more filler behind it, higher, until you got to the top. And we built that out all the way through till there were no more packages to put on that trailer. Most of the trailers went out of there at least 3/4 full. So by the end of the night, I was pretty tired, pretty wore out, and I remember in the morning after taking my jeans off, trying to put them back on the next morning, they were stiff just from the salt and the sweat. Very laborious jobs, and I decided that I wanted to graduate from college and not do that kind of work anymore. So, graduated from Kent State, moved to Texas, had my first job as a production planner. Realized I wanted to make more money and try different things. I was lucky enough to go to a career fair, and if we have time later on, I'll tell you that story. It's kind of funny. But I was hired at Abbott Laboratories. Back in that day, instead of logistics, it was called materials management. So we were, first job was a public warehouse manager. I had to manage 5 to 7 remote locations that warehoused and distributed our hospital products, pharmaceutical products. I had to conduct audits. I had to conduct cycle counts annually. The audits were twice a year, but it was a nice experience because I got to fly on Southwest when Southwest was a party bus. After 5 o'clock, when you got on Southwest, it was all the free drinks that you could drink, and they didn't cut you off. The only bad part was that everything behind row 12, they could smoke on the plane. So it was just like being in a bar. You smelled like the next day. So that was fun for a while. Was promoted to warehouse manager and eventually office manager. Went to a drug wholesaler for 1 year where I was in charge of converting acquisitions of little drug wholesalers into the master program. So that was for a year. Then I got rehired back at Abbott Diagnostics, which is down in Irving, Las Colinas area. Hired as warehouse manager and was eventually promoted to worldwide distribution manager. So we were responsible for shipping all of our medical equipment, instruments, their analyzers, and the reagents that went in the test in those analyzers all over the world. Gained a lot of experience there. I was fortunate enough to work with a gentleman there. He actually worked for me, and he started his own logistics company. And after I spent about another 5 years there, I went to a warehouse WMS developer as director of WMS for Windows environment. Back when Windows was just in the infant. So I got a little exposure to managing projects from WMS. I was more from a technical side. I wasn't a programmer, but trying to advise them on the features and functions of what a WMS should do and how it would be best served in a warehouse environment or a distribution environment. From there, my friend that I met and worked for me at Abbott asked me to come work for him. And I said, what would I be doing? He goes, you're going to be the president of the company. And I said, well, that's pretty good. And I said, would you mind putting that in writing? He goes, oh, okay. So he put it in writing. And I will tell you that as president of the company, I got to do multiple jobs. The first one I remember was unclogging the toilets, fixing a sprinkler out in the median, flipping boxes in the warehouse after our warehouse leader left, and all the rest of the time I spent was writing policies, procedures, and reviewing processes and trying to implement that in the meantime. I did get to participate on the Christmas committee, so when we had a party, we had a good party. That's how we started. Today, the friend I was telling you about, he passed away in 2019. He was the CFO, and after his unfortunate passing, I was promoted to CFO, so I'm currently now the president and CFO of Technical Transportation. So why am I telling you all this? Well, I'm going to tell you that there's a lot of opportunities in logistics. You guys are in business. Every facet of logistics requires some business acumen, okay? These are some of the organizational roles that we have. General admin, operations, customer service, quality management, sales, information technology, warehouse, and distribution. So general administration, in sense of the terms that we use at Technical Transportation, or we call it TechTrans for short, this is where all of our accounting functions happen. So everything from accounts payable to accounts receivable, to running the financials monthly and yearly, auditing carrier invoices, running credit checks on potential customers, setting credit limits for existing customers, working with third-party payment companies representing our customers to resolve any discrepancies in invoicing that we hand over to them. In addition to that, we have the roles of a receptionist, the vice president of operations, myself, the CEO. We are all under general administration. So we are a top-loaded group. I will tell you, general admin does not generate revenue, and it doesn't generate profits. So we are a pure overhead, we are a cost. So when we do what we do, we better do it right and make it better for the operations group. So we make decisions. If we make bad decisions, the whole company suffers. Our next roles in operations. So this is a multifunctional. Operations is very encompassing. In our operations world, we have under it our customer service group, and we have our warehousing group. And both of those play different roles. The manual part obviously is in the warehouse, and we'll touch base on that a little bit later on. But operations also is responsible for the negotiations between our vendors as far as services go. So in our world, it's transportation and value-added services. So they recruit what we call TSPs, technical service providers. In other cases, they may be called a carrier or an agent. So when we're looking for a specific need that our customer requires of us, we have to go out and search for service providers that provide those type of services, and then we negotiate rates with them, and so we have a predictable rate scheme that we can charge our customers back for. The operations group, are the day-to-day interface with our customers and not the customers that we're selling to. These are the real customers that have to make things happen. And they're the ones that are on the front line. So this is your frontline people. They're our frontline people. In our world, we claim that our employees are our biggest asset. And they are, because without them, nothing else would happen within our organization. Strategic issues, every day, there's a new challenge, I will tell you. Nothing repeats itself exactly the same way that you want, because you have different circumstances. You have a different delivery location, you have a different requirement because of the configuration on a product that's different from the last one that you delivered. You run into issues with traffic situations, different geographical locations within the US, Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, coordinating efforts with the TSPs between the customer and us and the TSP on delivery times, requirements, suggestions, and then when that doesn't happen, then they have to create a miracle. Then they have to pull the rabbit out of the hat and make it happen. So they're responsible for several strategic thinking, problem-solving efforts as they're going through this. They also are responsible for maximum efficiency. The more efficient they are, the more they improve their processes, the easier it is to replicate a process over and over. The other thing they do is actually look at cost. And in our world, we consider each shipment a generating revenue activity. So they look at each shipment, they understand what each cost is involved in the shipment, and they look at the rates that they're allowed to charge the customer, and they begin negotiations sometimes with TSPs so that they can ensure profitability. And as a result of the high profitability, the nets go up, everybody is happy. Customer service people are the front line within operations. As I was explaining, these are what these folks do every day. Also, in interfacing with the frontline people, they do participate on what we call QBRs, they're quality business reviews. So they prepare a lot of the information that goes into a QBR review. Number of shipments, amount of revenue or cost to the customer that's been generated, number of on-time deliveries, number of successful deliveries, number of damages, and then explaining any damages, what happened, what we analyzed, the cause of the effect, and what solutions that we implemented. So these folks are always working on things like that. Very stressful situation. If you can imagine a comptroller in a airport up in the tower trying to manage, hundreds of planes coming in and out. These folks do this every day, all day long, and without their eyes on the actual situation. So it's imperative that these folks have a unique personality. First of all, they have to understand how to be positive. They have to be confident. They have to show confidence for our customer, and they have to ensure the customer that we will take care of what happened. What happened, how we're going to address it, how we're going to address it. So they're very, very much so the people that walk around with their smiles on their face with their customer, and they're kicking the can behind the door on their brakes. But it's a very, very interactive position, very important position, and these folks here actually drive our net profits for the organization. This is a role that's not discussed much in business. And I will tell you, back when I started, we never even talked about quality. All I heard about quality, I learned from working in laboratories. When I first walked in the door, I wanted to do something, and they said, "Do you have a procedure for that?" And I go, "No." They go, "Well, you better write one." And I go, "Well, how do you write one?" And there was no exposure to any of that, so we actually had to work with a person from quality to understand how to write processes, say what you do and do what you say, basically. But being in the medical industry, there are obviously federal compliances that we have to adhere to. Everything from labeling to running tests, establishing protocol for the test, and then results for the test. So you have to go through all those processes before you can actually get approval to manufacture and market your product. In the world of pharmacy, that's a whole different animal. My sister actually worked in quality for 3 of the major pharmaceutical companies, and she was on the front end of actually working with the FDA in trying to release new drugs and other type of pharmaceuticals to the FDA for approval for manufacturing. So she had to work with manufacturing to establish the testing protocols and the results of the test. She had to report those back to the FDA. FDA came back, you got to go back and work on this, and several back and forth between the FDA and the organization before you can get approval to actually manufacture and sell a drug. And I know there's lots of discussions about prices of drugs. I will tell you, if you understood the cost of what it takes to get a drug approved just for release for manufacturing and selling, you would understand why the costs are so high. Now, there's opportunities for correcting that through collaboration with the FDA and manufacturing and quality, but I won't get into those politics on that. I don't know if any of you have heard ISO, have heard of ISO, International Standards Organization. ISO is actually the standard, the quality standard worldwide for manufacturing, logistics, transportation, you name it. Anything that encompasses the business world and activities should be subject to the ISO standards. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be certified. My organization in particular, because of the cost of the certification, have delayed our process of doing. We actually filed the application about a month ago. We're going to go through the process over the next 3 months and hopefully be certified by next month. But that did not excuse us from not following the ISO standards. We actually created our own quality system, our own quality manual, and our own quality application so that we can track and trace how we do things, training for how we do things, proof of how we get the results of what we do. And without that type of compliance, you can't do business with a lot of the Fortune 100, 500 companies. So we made a concerted effort about 5 years ago to start stressing quality. I actually hired a master's graduate from UNT 2 years ago as a carrier management liaison, and she is now our quality manager, and she's actually going to get us ISO certified in 2 short years. So fantastic opportunity in the world of quality. There's not an organization in the world today that doesn't have to have quality infused in their organization and the processes. Sales. These are the unique folks out there. These are the people that without them, the company doesn't exist. A different breed of animal, I will tell you. And there's not a clear-cut description of what a good salesperson would be. I've had experience working with sales my entire life, and I can't tell you that there's a clear-cut personality trait that makes one more successful than the other, except for, and this happened almost 10, 15 years ago, salespeople have gone from, back in my day, you take the customer out for a nice dinner, bottle of wine, take them to a show, buy football tickets, you name it, right? So that's how you develop relationships. And out of those relationships, you were able to get opportunity for sales. Now that's changed. In our environment today, there's a strict, and yet, matter of fact, you have to sign an agreement that you will not entertain beyond $25 or $50, whatever the case may be. So that type of social interaction has changed, and for good reason. They didn't want any favoritism, they didn't want any corruption or collusion going on as a result of what you would, in terms, say, bribery. And it's a good thing because it makes better companies more outstanding. True salespeople are now process engineers and consultants. What they do is they go to customers that we perceive have similar needs that we have, and they listen. They listen to their potential customers or their existing customers and try to understand what issues they're living with day to day. And then they have to go back and look and analyze and talk to the operations group and come up with recommendations and sometimes create new solutions. And then they go back to the potential customer and say, well, we listened to what you said and we think we have a way to address your needs. And a lot of the customers will use our organization in particular for a lot of their process reviews. Matter of fact, myself and a couple of my sales guys have actually gone to organizations and participated on a week-long Six Sigma project. And we were greeted and welcomed, and our input was taken, and they appreciate it very much. And you establish your relationships by doing things like that as an added value. We didn't generate any revenue for it. It cost us money and expenses to go there and do that, but we ended up getting a lot more opportunities with those particular customers. So, sales guys, they do have one common trait, and most of them are greedy. They like to make a lot of money. And they're rewarded for their efforts probably more handsomely, but they have the biggest risk in the organization, because if you don't sell, you usually get let go, or you don't make what you should be making or what you want to anticipate making. So they do have a little higher risk than everybody else. But they usually lead the QBRs between the customer and operations. They generate all of the initial contacts. They do all the mining for potential customers. We started using Zoom Info as a mining tool, and I think that's open up a lot more tools for, or a lot more opportunities for them to generate new leads. Back in my day, you got in your car with a maps go, and you went from building to building. So things have changed drastically in sales. Information technology. This is the area that I know nothing about, but I know I need it. Not true, I do. I've worked real closely with our IT group. Several jobs within IT, IT administration. You have programming, you have hardware specialists, you have network specialists, you have application gurus. These guys are very integral to our organization and everybody's organization. Without them, we don't implement technologies, we don't recognize productivity, we don't stay on the leading edge of applications or programs that could cost you business if you don't have it. So they have to make sure that what they're doing and what they're providing fits the needs of your organization and our customers' needs, while maintaining a very low amount of downtime to the operations firm. So as a matter of fact, our goals for our IT organization is how many hours of downtime did we have over the last year? And if it exceeds 5 hours, they get a little break. I'm happy to report that we've been below 2 hours for the last several years. A lot of those are a result of storms and activities that were, act of God. But as a result, we realized that we have a need for power generation. So, electricity goes out, you have a means to stay up and operate. So those guys do all that activity. But the most important thing they do is security. In today's day and age, there's all the ransomware that's going on, all the malware that's out there, all the phishing, spamming that's out there. They have to make sure that the integrity of the database and the applications are secure. Sometimes it aggravates the operations group when they can't open an email from somebody or open a website from someplace. But the need for security is so intent now that you gotta live within those needs. So, great role. Every organization has an IT department. Warehouse management. 2 years ago, I actually hired a gentleman from UNT as well. He went through the same program y'all are, and he had an eye opening because he wasn't exposed to things like making sure that there's job descriptions available for his warehouse leads and workers. He didn't know he had to have safety policies updated, forklift training, certifications, safety protocols for the entire organization, active shooting policy, coordinate with the police and fire department for compliance with the city codes. So it's more than just receiving packages and putting packages away and picking packages. It's laying out a warehouse to its most efficient manner, so your fast-moving products are somewhere close to where you want at the end of the road. So automation helps in this area as well. Additional roles in distribution, they're kind of hand in hand. Again, we have lots of opportunities within both of those areas that you can excel in. If you're interested in how things work, and how they move, and how they can move efficiently, warehouse and distribution is a great place to work. And also, being in distribution, things from the logistics world that you may not have had just in a warehouse environment or in an operations environment. So I think I got about 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to be kind of quick. We're not gonna get through everything today, but I wanted to touch a little bit on our organization and our kind of thoughts on how we approach business. We are a freight forwarder. Freight forwarder does not own any trucks. We don't own any drivers. We have a couple of facilities, but we provide the logistics processes for our customers that help their product get from point A to point B and delivered with their specifications. We actually handle high value equipment, very sensitive equipment. Most of our equipment that we handle, 70% medical instruments. We handle cash automation and cash recycling machines. A lot of the server racks, high-end electronics, that type of product, if you know. So what we don't do is we don't compete with other transportation companies, because there's a lot of people that go out there and give you better rates for getting part from A to B. But what we like to do is we like to add the sizzle to the steak. So we look at developing processes, implementing processes, so that when a product is released to a customer, it gets delivered inside the facility where it needs to be set up. We unpack it, take the packing away, and then we go to the effort of actually configuring the medical equipment to a startup point, so that the customer doesn't have to dispatch field service or salespeople to do that. We save them lots of money in travel expenses by doing this for them. So that's a value add. Cash automation machine or recycler, same thing. We handle the logistics of getting that to the facility. We actually bolt these pieces of equipment to the floor with a diamond bit drill. Our operations group is on the ChatGPT, and they have process steps 1 through 8, 1 through 22, whatever it is, and they confirm each step with a picture before they can move to the next step. Requirement of the customer, and before we get paid or we can invoice for it, we have to complete all those steps. Hooking it up to the network, getting sign off, and go. These are value added services that other companies typically don't do. Help the outsource functions that we do, that we don't do internally, but also involved in the business logistics world, marketing. I do outsource that, and that's why we're videoing, so I could have an opportunity to post this on LinkedIn. Legal, we have to have lawyers to interpret your tax filings. You have a claim that you have to settle. You have a workman's comp case, as we joked about earlier in the morning. You have a partner that passes away, and you have to understand how you divvy the shares of the company up. Lots of activities in legal. And then, have a lawyer on staff is expensive, so those are kind of things that we consider outsourced. Transportation services, I referred to TSPs earlier, technical service providers. We partner with over 1,200 folks in the transportation world that own the trucks and drivers. So those are all of our outsourced services. Again, that's some of the jobs in logistics. I don't want to bore you too much with all those. These are some stats that from 2021 about total degrees, 10,000, almost 11,000 people in the workforce. Logistics, 11.5 million. These are domestic workers. Average wage, about $98,000. And that doesn't mean you walk in the door day one, you're making $98,000. I think you have to earn that. Because the average employee age is about 43, 44 years old. I was gonna get into professional tips here. How much time do I got left? 5 minutes? Okay. I'll get into this. I won't go into our environment now. So you guys are gonna get ready to do interviewing pretty soon. I'll tell you what you wanna do, okay? Smile. If you don't do anything else, smile. People love a happy face. It's contagious. It really is. You hate to see somebody come in with a frown on their face. I, as an interviewer, it changes my whole attitude around, okay? Dress appropriately. Brian joked about me dressing up today. I did that for a purpose. I want you guys to understand that when you go for a job interview, make sure you get your hair cut, dress nicely, wear a nice suit, wear a tie if you got one, wear a pantsuit, nice dress, right? Look good. I'll tell you guys one joke, and it stuck with me. My partner, when he was probably 30, got out of the service, and he was applying for a job at Boeing or one of those big manufacturing plants in Fort Worth. And his dad looked at him the night before. He had one of those Abraham Lincoln beards. And he goes, "Carl," he goes, "how much money do you think that beard's gonna make you?" And Carl said, "I sat there and thought." And he goes, "I went right out in the bathroom, I shaved it off." And he had a tan line. So he went to the interview the next day, and he said, I could tell the guy was asking me questions, he just kept looking at my face. And he goes, I finally asked him, "What are you looking at?" He goes, "You got this like tan line that's, you know." He goes, "What's the deal with that?" He goes, "Well, I talked to my dad last night. My dad said," asked me the question, "how much money is that beard gonna make you?" Guess what? I realized it wasn't gonna make me any money. And that interviewer said, "You know, two things. You made good common sense decision, and you listened to your dad." He got hired. So, it makes a difference. It really does. Firm handshakes, no fist bumps. Be prepared with several resumes or soft copies that you can provide before you go in. Be pleasant, be confident. Research the company before you go in to interview. Prepare a list of questions you want to ask. Eat or drink lightly. You want to have something on your stomach because you don't want your stomach growling while you're in an interview. Right? So those are the kind of things that I'll leave this with you. I can't get into everything because I've got 1 minute left. And I really wanted to leave you with one last thing. I told you in my one interview, kind of a funny story. I was ready for a new opportunity, make more money, and I went to a career fair in a hotel. And I didn't know anything about any of the companies, but you stood in line, and the guy in front of me that was talking to the interviewers, I was about that far, and I heard two things. I heard him say, "Don't sell yourself short," and the other thing I heard him say to his buddy was, "I wonder where we can get cowboy boots," because they were from Illinois. So it's my turn next. I went up, and I gave my resume. They asked me a couple of questions, formality. They go, "Well, what do you expect in return for salary?" And I heard what the guy said before me, so I said I went way up above that. And they go, "Okay," just like that. And anything else? I go, "Yeah, by the way, I heard you guys talking. If you want to get a good pair of cowboy boots, you can go over here and here. Here's the addresses. Here's where you go. And if you guys want to have a couple drinks later on, this is the place to go. This is the place to go." I got the interview the next day. I was being cordial with them. I talked about things that they were interested in and not just about the jokes. I apologize for running out of time. I have a lot more I can say. I'm going to be teaching Amy's class on Monday, so I'm going to go through something similar, but I'm going to touch more on our organization. Thank you very much for having me.